Boxing fans, this is going to be a weekend to remember. There's major fights all weekend long, and I know you are not going to want to miss a single second. And while you're watching, don't forget to get in on all the action with my partners, DraftKings Sportsbook. DraftKings is offering all new customers $200 in bonus bets instantly after betting just $5. So don't wait. Sign up right now. All you got to do is download the DraftKings app. When you sign up, use my promo code Sonnen. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Stay in on the action and use your $200 in same-game parlays for a chance at an even bigger payout. Combine multiple bets together from the same fight. Love the thrill of live betting? DraftKings has got you covered. Bet live on in-progress fights as they happen, making watching the game that much more exciting. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Pick 6, giving you a shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. New customers use my promo code Sonnen. Bet just $5 and you will get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code Sonnen only at DraftKings Sportsbook. UFC 1. It's one of the quintessential highlights that still lives on from 1993. And great big gentleman. Sumo was his background. And was it Keith Hackney, guys? Was it Keith Hackney that kicked him in the mouth and it kicked his teeth out? It was a very grave. It was sad. It looked like he hurt the man. Great big guy. But we didn't know anything. I remember 1993. Oh my goodness, we didn't know anything about fighting. Man, when they put a sumo guy in there, this guy, they led from him into a gentleman called Emmanuel Yarborough. And Emmanuel was 608 pounds, or at least billed to be. And I'll just tell you, as a wrestler, or like an aspiring wannabe tough guy at that time, I had no idea that wrestling was something you could use if you were in a combat situation. No one did. But we also didn't understand size and strength. Like, those beliefs about who the bigger, stronger guy was is therefore the bigger badass was widely accepted. And with all things equal, there's probably a real truth to that. I'm just sharing for you, when Emmanuel Yarborough got into that ring at 608 pounds, there was a number of people that believed he was going to win. And just when you saw him on paper, it was a pretty good prediction for the whole tournament. Nobody picked who was going to win a 178-pound Hoist Gracie. That just wasn't the way the mindset worked. And but if I tell you that now, knowing everything you know now, you'd say, well, he has no chance. You'd say, Chael, he can't move. So, Chael, there isn't jujitsu for 608-pound guys. Their belly and their body, it would preclude them from doing something as basic as a guard. It would preclude their endurance. It would preclude their ability to move around. In fact, Chael, I'll cut him in half. I'll make him 300 pounds, and I don't think you can find anybody out there whose own body won't get in their way, won't get tired, just for example. And I don't think there's anything that I've just said that you disagree with. But there must be a tipping point. There must be. And this came out 2 days ago by Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast wants a gorilla versus 100 men. Now you get 100 men because the gorilla so clearly has the advantage. And I agree. I don't think one guy could beat the gorilla. But with what evidence as fight experts do we come to that conclusion? I mean, after all, the gorilla will have absolutely no training. Not going to be able to bite you and kill you. Wouldn't Emmanuel Yarborough be the closest thing that we've seen as far as just being a different body, a different level of power, a different level of mass to have to deal with? And it went miserably bad, miserably, to where it was sad to watch, in addition to being a surprise. So I'm only coming to you. 608 pounds was too much. 608 trained pounds was too much. But 1,000 could beat 100 men. It's an interesting concept, which, by the way, I don't just openly dismiss. It would take a few men to deal with the size of the gorilla. My partner Ryan brought something up, and he said, Chael, I don't know anything about the endurance capacities of a gorilla. Like, could you push this thing? Could you push it and it gets tired? And how many men would that take? So, Bo Nickel comes out, God bless him. This was a very smart thing to do. And he accepted the challenge, Mr. Beast. Hey, you're looking for 100 men. I'll lead the charge. And what do you think would happen? Now, conceptually, I despise the idea of a gorilla being taken out of its comfort zone, used as a prop and entertainment, and then, by the way, being attacked. I despise that idea, but we're not being literal here, I don't think. I don't think the beast is looking for 100 men and somewhere in the world that he could hold such an event. And moreover, what do you have to do to beat him? That's always been a question. That's been a question that we accepted within our sport of MMA because somebody else told us. I mean, the term finish a fight came specifically and solely from jiu-jitsu. And the way you finish a fight is if the guy taps. And that is now an accepted method. But we know that the gorilla is not going to tap. So can we refer to more of my background, a wrestling background? Can we pin him? Now, I don't want anybody to punch the gorilla. We're not going by boxing rules and we knock him down 3 times within a round or we knock him out. I don't think. The closest I've ever heard of this was Bingo the Wrestling Bear. And Bingo the Wrestling Bear was brought into a bar, I believe, in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And had a flyer. You get $500 if you can pin Bingo the Wrestling Bear. And the World Team camp was in town. Now, World Team is the exact same as Olympic Team. Every 4 years they call it the Olympic Team. And the other 3 in between, it's the same thing, but they go to the World Championships. And I'm only sharing with you, it's the best of the best. Mark Schultz hears about this, and Mark Schultz took on Bingo. And it was very specific, though. You don't have to beat him up or kill him or hurt him, something like this. Bear's muzzled, bear's been declawed, you got to pin him. And it's in a bar, and Mark shows up in a wrestling singlet, and he pins Bingo the Wrestling Bear. In fact, Mark choked the bear. And Mark Schultz was very famous for something known as a front headlock. You've only seen it one time if you're MMA fans. One time in the history of MMA, and nobody really even knew what they were looking at. It was a wrestling hold made famous by Mark and Dave Schultz. Matt Hughes used it to render unconscious Ricardo Almeida, which, like, any way you saw that fight going, you did not imagine that Matt would ever submit Ricardo Almeida. It was a very big surprise, but it was also a technique that's not used in jiu-jitsu. It was a little bit of a surprise. I'm just, for you hardcore fans, you will see that. But Mark did that to the bear, and it worked. Like, who would know if you could choke out a bear? Does it work the same? Apparently so. Mark front headlock and choked out the bear. And people that were there, apparently it was very sad. The bear let out a groan. He goes, oh! People that saw it didn't like it. But either way, Mark rolled him over and pinned him. And if you're wondering how that story ends, the owner of the bar refused to pay the $500 because he defined a pin as you've got to take its arms and you got to pin its arms down. He did not define it as shoulders touching the mat. You had to take its arms and pin its arms down, and the trick was that a bear's anatomy locks right here. You would have to break break the bear to get its arms down. He didn't pay up. But I only bring that to you because that was never supposed to happen. The bear wasn't supposed to be choked, and there wasn't supposed to be a man that could deal with the strength of the bear. And now there's 100 men versus one gorilla. And it's an interesting concept that speaks to how little people know. They just do. I remember when it was going around, Ronda could beat Floyd. And I'm in a business where I have to hear stupid things from stupid people. That, in my time in this business, is the most stupid thing I've ever heard. Now, good for promotioning and marketing and keeps a conversation going. I'm talking about if you're being literal. That is ridiculous. But I remember some of my peers weighing in on it. And they were picking Ronda. And I remember some of my peers even saying, well, she could beat me. I still remember to this day dudes that said, I look at them differently. I remember in the moment, one of them was a college football player who watches the channel. I won't out him by name. I couldn't believe it. And it is sometimes surprising how little that people will know or people would imagine. And the idea that a gorilla of any kind, a silverback, a male, a pissed off gorilla, a happy gorilla, a full-grown gorilla, baby gorilla, any way that you want to do it. The idea that you could possibly find 100 men so weak that they couldn't beat the gorilla is fascinating. But even more fascinating, sadly, is those 100 men do exist.